Hi everyone, my name is Meisse and I'm a senior recruiter at Prodigy Search. I've been in recruiting for 5 years and I've worked with teams and leagues like the Yankees, Bruins, PGA Tour, you name it. I started my career in communications with the New Jersey Devils. So now as a recruiter, hopefully I could help you out with your job search and give you the inside scoop about what us recruiters really look for in your background. So join me and hopefully I could help you out in the real world. See you soon.
Excellent. Megan, thank you for being here today. Take it away.
Of course. Well, I will share my screen and get things kicked off here. But as you heard, I am Megan Meisse, and I am a senior recruiter at Prodigy Search, which is based in New Jersey, born and raised a Jersey girl. And today we're going to talk about decoding the job search. So networking tips, LinkedIn, jobs, what to expect really. So as we go through, if there's any questions, feel free to drop them in and I'll get to them as best as possible, but we'll get underway. So what we're talking about today, again, LinkedIn, networking, creating your brands, being prepared for interviews, the do's and don'ts of resumes. It may seem very basic to some people, but it's all incredibly useful information. So we'll get started with kind of the introduction of me. I started in high school in a bakery, and that was not my dream job. It was my high school job. It paid for my gas so I could go hang out with my friends, but was not my ultimate career. Then I moved on to Teva Pharmaceuticals, which was a marketing company, and I worked in their North American sales office. And again, it was a little bit similar to what I wanted to get into. I went to college for marketing, PR, communications, but you know, pharmaceuticals wasn't really my thing at the same time. So I sent a blind email to the SVP of communications at the Devils. A week later, I got an interview with him. A week after that, they offered me the internship. So it was just a cold note that I sent and, got the job after that. So that was tremendous. Shortly after that, after I graduated college, I started my career at Prodigy Search, where I'm at currently, which is a national executive search firm throughout the sports and entertainment industries, and we'll work with teams, leagues, agencies, you name it, to help fill positions for their executive office. So while it was an interesting kind of run for me and steps along the way, I'm where I'm at now. I'm in the sports field. I love what I do and make great connections. So we'll hop into kind of the networking 101, and it's creating your brand. And I'll touch on this a lot throughout the presentation, but creating your personal brand. And one of the most simple yet difficult questions people ask is, tell me about yourself. The number one thing people always tend to lean on is, hi, I'm Megan and I'm a recruiter, or hi, I'm Megan, I'm a student. But think about it. Does your job really define you at the end of the day? So the better question you should be thinking about is, who are you? There's simple questions to start with. What's your name? Do you have a cool nickname? What are you driven by? Do you have hobbies, quirky interest? So recognizing somewhat of that, who you are, really helps identify your brand other than just, hi, I'm a student or I just graduated. So here's my real introduction. Here's who I really am. Here is my brand. And you'll see some of these that I'm a beach bum, I'm a hard worker, I'm a mentor, I'm a daughter. I'm all of the above here. So yes, I'm not just Prodigy Search, but this is my brand. You need to recognize who you are outside of, just the student, but think of it as a brand. If you think of something like a Gatorade, you think of energy, you think of athletes, you think of a lightning bolt, endurance, sports, the huge G logo. So all the characteristics of a brand can be applied to yourself too. So think outside the box a little bit when you want to identify what you're really about and who you are. Now, once you identify your brand, you need to share it. But with who is always the better question. So you may not realize it, but you network daily. So continue the relationships after the connection is made, and you'll see on here it's anyone from your family or friends who you live with, who you spend all your time with, to guest speakers like myself, to your coworkers, to your online dating profile matches. So everything you do is a connection in some way, and it's not always a super corporate connection is the point I'm trying to get at here, but you always don't need to reach out when you need something. And I think that's networking 101, truthfully. But engaging with people and their posts and having a dialogue and taking part in the conversation, I think that goes a long way. So ask people questions about themselves. Make sure to ask the questions that you intend on asking to make the conversation beneficial. At the end of the day, it really comes down to making it a two-way street. There's always a little bit of give and take there. So how can you help? What can you offer them? But share your personal brand too. I mean, you spend the time trying to figure it out. So let people know who you are. I think that goes a tremendously long way. I want to get into LinkedIn because we can spend a great number of time on this area, but it's profile tips, tricks, and your outreach. So I'm not a stats person, so bear with me here, but there's over 645 million people on LinkedIn. There's over 30 million companies listed. There's over 20 million job openings listed. And there's zero excuse not to have a LinkedIn profile. So if you're a recent graduate, if you're a freshman even, there's no reason why you shouldn't have a LinkedIn if you plan on working at any point for your next 80 years of life. So if you don't have one, I think it's tremendously beneficial that you do sign up, but make sure that your profile is up to date. I would say probably more than 90% of recruiters use LinkedIn regularly. LinkedIn profiles with a headshot are about 14 times more likely to get profile views than those without one. But the average user only spends about 17 minutes monthly on LinkedIn, which as a recruiter, I probably spend 23 out of 24 hours of my day on LinkedIn. So that number is more shocking to me, obviously, but 17 minutes a month is very, 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 very minimal when you're looking for a job. So that number needs to increase significantly, and it's very seamless to do that. So kind of the basics of LinkedIn, how it works: you have your first connections, who is anyone who's you and I. If I'm connecting with Jeff, I send him a request, he accepts it, now we're first degree connections. My second degree connections are my friends' friends. So anyone who Jeff is connected to who I'm not now automatically becomes my second degree. We have a mutual friend in there. Your third degree connections are your friends' friends' friends. So it may be people who went to the same university as you, or join the same club or same group or follow the same pages on there. So you're tied together somehow, but you may not always have someone that you're connected with. So I think understanding those really helps you tremendously see where you could benefit, how you could reach out to people, but always use those as a kind of buffer in between sending a note to someone or a connection request and saying, hey, yeah, I saw you connected with Joe over there. Hi, I'm Megan. So it helps you out, kind of break the ice a little bit too. We'll talk about some of the basics of your profile. Keeping it up to date. I mean, this should be a reflection. If I looked at this yesterday, it should tell the same story as you from today or last week, or in a week from now, it may change and be updated. So keep it up to date, keep it strong, add useful connections. I joke, I go through kind of the big purge or the big cut of connections sometimes of people that I haven't talked to in 10 plus years, or that I just needed to add when I was in a class in college or high school. But it's okay to delete people if you see benefit in adding people who are better suited for your network. Strong summary, you'll see the about section on my profile, but I'll always add my skills in there, a little bio about what I do, and always contact information. If there's anything to add, it's your email. And a lot of times students will use their college email, their school email, whatever it may be, but you have to realize that you are going to graduate and that email will expire. So always put your personal email as a secondary email, or even just change it to that directly. So we see that a lot, and we try to reach out to people and we can't, because we have people 5 years out of college who are still using their, Temple email, and that doesn't work all the time. So make sure it's your own personal one. Make it a duplicate of your resume. This should reflect your resume tremendously. We'll get to that down the road. And last but not least, your photo. Good lighting, dress professionally. It doesn't need to be a suit and tie for this picture, but don't have groups, don't crop people out, don't have your prom photo with your date cut out next to you. Use a self-timer if you need to. Ask your roommate, ask your friends. I mean, that's going to become your best friend at the end of the day, the timer, if you can't find someone to take it. But stand against a blank wall if you need to. Put on a nice shirt, call it a day. And it's super easy to upload. It crops it super small for you anyway, so it does have to work. We'll get into kind of promoting yourself, and this is kind of more the meat of your LinkedIn profile, but adding bullets to your details, I think that's crucial. And yes, I have many more jobs at this stage than you might have on your LinkedIn, but the details on the bullets matter. Even if it's just 1 or 2 items underneath it, that always helps out tremendously. Adding any links, websites, videos. You'll see here I have a moment with Megan, which is my own article series that I put out, but LinkedIn has the capability to add those things in there purposely to highlight your accomplishments. So the more the merrier, throw them in. I mean, there's no difference between putting, a tweet out there that got a lot of likes, or, putting a link to your sports reel or something of that sort. Or if you had a presentation in class that you were super proud of and it looked pretty cool, throw that on there. I mean, the more the merrier. There is a limit on LinkedIn about how many you can hit, but until you get to that point, keep adding them. I mean, nothing seems silly. It may seem silly. Should I add this? Should I not? But the answer is always going to be yes. It's always better to have more on there. If you're struggling for what content to put, maybe take a minute, write a 2-paragraph article, put it on Word and upload it there. So there's ways to add links and other things if you don't have this huge portfolio of items, but it's always better to put something on there too. The last thing, list your jobs in order. LinkedIn makes it very simple that it picks the dates for you and automatically does it, but ballpark ranges are always fine. You don't need to know the exact date, but month, year, and start with your most recent experience always. Now, going the extra step, this is kind of the fluff, if you want to call it, at the end of your profile, but this is the stuff that I look for a lot on people's LinkedIns. But adding your education, make sure you add your major, make sure you add the year that you're graduating. One, it gives the expectation for you what to look for in your next kind of step along the way, but hiring managers can see, oh yeah, they're graduating soon, great, let's get them on our radar. So make sure that's in there. Your volunteer experience, your activities, your extracurriculars, there's spots on LinkedIn for all of this. So fill those in. If you're struggling with that area, you might need to get more involved with things, but it's very easy. It's a plug and play. Skills is another area that I love and I look at a lot. If I'm trying to decide if someone's the right fit for a position, I'll look at their skills and say, oh yeah, so Megan's super strong in public relations. She would be a great hire for this marketing role that we have. If I'm going out for a sales role and all you see on my background is public relations and event planning, maybe I'm not the best seller there is. So you have to add the skills yourself, and then people will endorse you for them personally, but they can't endorse you until you add them on there. So think about what you're good at. It doesn't always have to be, Microsoft Office or Paint or, some of those basic ones that everyone has, but think outside the box a little bit too. And LinkedIn comes up with those suggestions also that are similar to it. So that goes a long way, and those are super beneficial. Now, I'll talk about promoting yourself, and this is another area that can be seen as kind of the fluff, but your accomplishments. And this is a tremendous section where you can brag as much as you want about yourself. So I have awards, honors, scholarships that I was involved in. I published an article for a newspaper that was national, so that's in there too. Again, I don't expect you to have all of these filled out, but any on-campus initiatives that you're involved in, if you made the honor roll, if you made your Greek honor roll in your sorority or fraternity, add that stuff in there too. Again, the more the merrier until you decide, okay, yes, maybe I can move on for this, or you get something better as you get more experience. But for this stage, always add it in. The last thing is the interest there, and that's any groups that you follow on LinkedIn, and you could see that I have a wide variety of ones, and I probably have over 300 of them at this point that I'm interested in, but they're all tailored to what I like, and not all of them are super corporate. You'll see People Magazine. I still love my reality news and stuff, but Nickelodeon, yes, it's a kids company, it's a TV channel, but they post a tremendous amount on jobs on there too. So as much as I'm looking for kind of news and trends, it's also a great resource to follow those companies that you're interested in. I always have kind of a list of maybe 5 to 10 companies that are my goals. Just like you do it with colleges, you have kind of your safety schools, your reach schools, and then your ones that you would never stand a chance maybe, but you're still going to shoot for them and you're still going to apply. It's the same thing with jobs too. You may not think you're the most qualified person, but if you follow them and see what you're interested in, I think that goes a long way. So that could help out tremendously. Now for outreach, I think this is one of the most difficult parts that people kind of struggle with, but it's how to connect with people in the industry. So find a current connection and view their connections. Start with the people you know. It's your coworkers, it's your boss, your clients, alum of your school. You can search specifically by name, titles, organizations, you name it. So LinkedIn, again, makes it very seamless to search for people. They want you to connect with people. So I would say quality over quantity is great when it comes to connections. Again, it's okay with cutting people. It's okay with declining people. It's okay with accepting people. But at the end of the day, make sure you have the right type of connections who are benefiting you on a personal level. I would say this is one of the most crucial things. Always, always, always add a note when you are sending a connection request. It goes a long way. It helps me understand how we met, or what your goal is, or how I can help you out too. I mean, 9 times out of 10, I'm not accepting someone's request if they don't send a note, because yes, we might have mutual friends, but that doesn't mean I know you personally. But if you say, oh yeah, we have a mutual friend, and I see that also in our second degree connections, but you also reach out and say, hey, I would love to get connected, I'm more inclined to answer your note because you spent the 2 seconds to write, 10 words to me too. So always send a note when you're sending a connection request. Even you just say, hey, I'm graduating in a year from now, love to connect. I mean, that's more than what most people do. So that goes a long way. It's more genuine. I mean, you're connecting with real people at the end of the day. Now, when we get to kind of the secrets of LinkedIn, there's this whole hidden job search strategy for universities and high schools. So if you go to linkedin.com/alumni, there's a whole platform for students and for education managers and professors. So you'll see on here, it's different video series. They have a ton of articles. They have tips. They'll walk you through interviewing, they'll walk you through how to make a LinkedIn, how to network, all of the above. I mean, everything is right here for you. So that's a tremendous resource. If you haven't looked into it, look into it. It will help you a lot along the way. But on there, you could also search for your college, university, whatever it may be. And alumni of your college are more likely to help their own. So if they see you went to Monmouth, since I did, maybe they're more likely to click on your name because they also went there and they see that connection. So utilize that to your advantage. Again, they could have graduated 10 years ago, but that doesn't mean that they won't still help you. So that's a great resource. There's also another section for the higher ed side of things where it's more best practices, LinkedIn 101, somewhat of that sort, but that's tremendously helpful also for any educators out there too. So I'll stop there for a second before we get into kind of the second half of our conversation here, but that's just summarizing kind of the networking side of things and LinkedIn if there's any follow-up there. Otherwise, we'll hop into to the second half here. Good. Jeff, you're muted. Zoom 101.
You'd think by now I'd have it together, right? You know, I think that outreach part is just so underutilized by students. You know, I think there's an understanding that they need to have a LinkedIn, but not really a true understanding of why. And again, like to utilize it to say that, hey, Megan, I know that you and I have known each other for a long time. I see that you know this person at this company that I'm applying with. Would you share a good word about me? Would you, recommend me for the job? Would you connect me with that person directly? Like, that's the value of LinkedIn. You have to make that direct ask, but you have to also have earned the right to make that direct ask in life, in the relationship, everything else. I think you did a great job of talking about that. But if there's one thing that I would, try to pound in the student's head again and again, that's the value, right? It's, I know you, you trust me, you know this person, can I borrow your equity, right? Like, can we connect? So
yep, it goes back to that two-way street mentality. So give and take for sure.
Yeah.
We'll hop into kind of the back half of this. Now that you've got your networking confidence, you've got your personal brand, you have your LinkedIn set up, it's time to apply for jobs. And this is the tricky part where it may seem easy to upload a resume and hopefully pray and wait for an answer, but it's not just that. So I'll go over some of the do's and don'ts of this. Again, a lot of this may seem like it's basic knowledge, but it's the knowledge that people often forget too at the same point. So before you're even applying for a job, I would say start following industry trends, read the journals, read ESPN, whatever it may be if you're looking to get in the sports side, but don't always target a company that is, your super all-star. There's going to be a path to get there too. So a lot of companies right now, unfortunately, are going through massive layoffs, closed locations. So yes, the job market is scattered right now, but we're still actively busy here at Prodigy. People are still hiring regardless. So yes, as many layoffs as they're having, they're also hiring a lot of people. So put on your Google alerts for it. That's a tremendous, tremendous resource. I have a alert for every single team there is, every client that we work with. So you can imagine my notifications going off, but that's how we learn a lot about our information. So that's tremendously helpful. Figure out how to get your resume to a decision maker, but make it sure it's an actual human being. There's so many times there's just a generalized info email or job email, but you want to make sure it's going to an actual person so they can view it and make sure you get an answer from them too. Practice interviewing, that's tremendous. We'll get to that. And if you're in a mix for a job, but you don't get it, stay on their radar, keep in touch with people. I mean, that's how you find out about things down the road too. So we do that all the time. If we're working with someone and they unfortunately don't get that job and we go with someone else, we still want to keep them. They were still interviewed for a reason. They were still going through the process for a reason. So they had something about them that made sense for us. But maybe it just wasn't their time for this one, or they weren't the right cultural fit, or they couldn't move across the country. So keep in touch. You never know where that's going to lead you down the road. We'll talk about some of the benefits of interviewing, and I know it's tremendously scary sometimes to interview, but you have to realize that it's just people that you're talking with at the end of the day. So there's nothing to be afraid of. It's just a conversation. I don't want to oversimplify it, but at the same time, it is simple. So do your homework. I think that's the best way to kind of prepare and get comfortable with things. Learn about what you're trying to get into. If you're applying for a job and you don't know kind of the basics of it, it's probably not the job for you. meet people who are connected in that industry. Try to get a call with them, even if they don't have something posted directly on their website. But if you see, you know, Megan has the ideal background that you want to get into, ask for a call. I mean, truthfully, you're going to learn so much more talking to someone than reading off a description or sitting there praying that they open a new job that is your dream job. So do your homework, research someone's background, research the company, dig into kind of their day-to-day, and ask how they got it, truthfully. I mean, people are willing to help if you're willing to ask too. But try different methods. Use email, use phone calls, use LinkedIn. LinkedIn and email are great because it's that kind of buffer in between the phone call, so you can be a little bit more comfortable with the note that you send on LinkedIn and then eventually get to the phone call, but the nerves are kind of out of the way. Great, you've done the outreach. Okay, I got that out of the way. Now we can have a phone call, and we already have this relationship a little bit. So it's a great buffer in between. And informational interviews, yes, they're not always about the dream job, but they're tremendously beneficial. I do them all day long. And as much as it's people looking to help, for me to help find a role, I learn a lot from them too. And it's another connection I make under my belt. So we'll hop into resumes, and I could probably spend a full day on resume do's and don'ts, but some of the basics of resumes are making sure your contact details are up to date. Again, I mentioned the college email or the education email. Eventually that will expire. Have the right location where you're living, have your right phone number, add your LinkedIn profile link. You spent all the time trying to make your LinkedIn perfect. You made your own brand now, so put that link in there 100%. Silly, check spelling and grammar. It happens a lot. We're so in a rush sometimes that we don't spell check, which is crazy, but more importantly, watch your use of verb tense. If I worked at the Devils in the past, for instance, I've worked there, I've developed press releases, and I wrote articles. If I'm there now, I develop, I write. It's different. So at Prodigy now, I recruit. I didn't recruit back then, but now I'm recruit. So make sure it's present tense. I mean, we see that a lot on resumes that you're not there anymore. You did that, but make sure you just watch those changes in between that. So again, little things, but they go a long way. Bullets, dashes, whatever you need. No one likes to read super long paragraphs. And again, similar like LinkedIn, but make it chronological order. Now the don'ts. I would say the biggest thing on here is worrying about the page count. And we see that all the time with students just trying to fill space so their resume looks longer. I would say at this level, it is totally normal to have a one-page resume. I encourage it, actually. I don't expect anyone to have 5 jobs listed on there. I don't expect you to have 10 internships listed on there, but one page is tremendously great. Don't use personal pronouns. I mean, the person reviewing your resume doesn't know you at that level, so keep it very generic when it comes to that. I mentioned templates here, and as much as they're beneficial, there's a lot that you need to pay for. So there's great websites like Canva, C-A-N-V-A, that has templates for resumes, presentations, graphics, social posts, whatever it may be, but it's 100% free. So look into some of those that are free first before you spend the time and the money to find, the best looking template there is. Canva's great. The Microsoft Word has templates on there also. So some of these are tremendously helpful. So I would say avoid templates that you have to pay for unless it's absolutely necessary. But you can do it on your own too. Avoid lengthy paragraphs. Again, that goes back to kind of the bullets and the dashes for details. No one wants to read chunks of paragraph at a time. And the adjective statement. I think this is so commonly misconcepted whether people should have them or not, but if it's very specific to the job that you're applying for, go for it. If it's not, and you're just, a hardworking student looking to get into the sports industry, great. you're the same as everyone else probably who's also applying for that job. So unless you're a hardworking individual who just graduated with a 4.0 and your dream job is to have a marketing position where you do X, Y, and Z, there's a little bit more meat on the bones there. So more details better, otherwise I would leave it out entirely. We'll get into kind of the 4 necessities, but the first 3 are very self-explanatory of your resume, your contact information, your education, your professional experience. But your skills and interest I want to touch on briefly, because your skills, there's hard skills and soft skills. Your soft skills are you're hardworking, you're a great communicator, and you're dedicated. Your hard skills are you're great at Photoshop. You have a training in, this category, whatever it may be. So those are the more tangible items that people look for. And also look into the job description to see if it requires some of those skills, and absolutely highlight those on a resume. Now, when it comes to kind of the visuals behind a resume, the content, is it relevant or is it just filling space? Is it outdated? Does it match your LinkedIn profile? Did you write too much? Did you write too little? Did you put references on there? And if you didn't write references or had them listed there, you could put a little section, references upon request, but make sure you're having the right people, and always ask someone to be your reference too. And always, always, always save your resume into a PDF document. A lot of times Word docs or something else get jumbled when they go through kind of the applicant system or the job board or whatever it may be. So make sure it's a hard copy of the document before you put it forward. When it comes to creativity, I would say, is your resume readable? Do all your fonts match, your size, your colors? I would always highlight over the whole thing and just double check that they're all the same. And is sure all links work too. And it's okay to have multiple versions of your resume. If you're applying for a marketing job, sure, make it a little bit more colorful and fun, but if it's a sales role, make it a little bit more clean cut maybe. The last thing I'll touch on is the cover letter, and we're kind of split here at the office, whether we love cover letters or we hate them, but I'm somewhere in the middle there, that if you address it to an actual person and you highlight your skills, it's tremendously beneficial. It's another chance to sell yourself, but if you're just addressing it to whom it may concern, or sir, madam, Mr. or Mrs., it's probably not making that connection and tends to get overlooked. So I would not spend too much time on it unless it's incredibly specific, just like the objective on a resume, just like the summary on LinkedIn. More detail, the better. We'll touch on somewhat of expect the unexpected. So it's always better to over-prepare than under-prepare, but we'll talk about interviewing, kind of the good and bad of what to expect. So now that we have our brands, we have our LinkedIn, we have our resume, we're getting into the steps of an interview. So it's the pre-interview, it's during an interview, and it's the post-interview. So the pre-interview, I would say practice at home. Always prepare for your questions. And it may seem silly, but a lot of times our nerves get the best of us and we tend to forget our names sometimes. So there's nothing wrong with sitting on the couch saying, "Nice to meet you, my name is Megan, and I would love to apply for, the Dallas Cowboys because X, Y, and Z." So it's silly to recite your name to yourself, but it helps you be more confident in yourself. So then you could focus on more of the harder questions or more of the skills, but know your skills and share them. Say, hey, yeah, I ran this event on campus and it was tremendous and we had 100 people at it and I killed it. There's nothing wrong with, giving yourself a little bit of a confidence boost. There's a difference between having an ego and having confidence, but if you're sharing your facts, sharing your stats, sharing your success, there's nothing wrong with that. But have your brand figured out. Again, do you want to be the person who's the hardworking individual in the room, or do you want to be, the creative thinker over there? So share your brand, make sure you identify that before you apply for a job, but before you go into the interview too, people are going to ask, tell me about yourself. And you're not going to start off with, oh, well, I'm a student here, but here's my brand overall. If it's Zoom, which probably it is nowadays, test your camera, test your lighting, unmute yourself. I'll pick on Jeff when I can, but those are some of the basics. We all know that at this point. Everyone lives on Zoom now, but do your homework, research the company, review the job description, and any job I've ever applied for and still do now when we're working with people, but I'll highlight some of the responsibilities on there and say, yeah, I've done this, I've definitely done this. Okay, maybe I haven't done that before, let me skip that one, but I've definitely done this. So that way, before my interview, I know, okay, these are some of the responsibilities they're working for, and I've done these and I've crushed these. So let me go in with my head strong and say, oh yeah, I have done these, and I know that's what you're looking for in this role too. And always know who you're interviewing with. And it's very easy. They might reach out to you personally to schedule an interview. Otherwise, look at the job description to see who it reports to. Do your homework again on the company, but get to know their background and how they got into that role, and know how to pronounce their name also. Google a video of them maybe at times, but you don't want to embarrass yourself with the little things that could cost you the job. Dress the part. I joke that men should pretend they don't have pockets, because a lot of times they'll do that as kind of a nervous habit, or walk in a room with their hands in their pockets. So pretend your jacket or your pants don't even have pockets at all. Women, look out for too much jewelry, too much makeup. You don't want to be too flashy unless that's your brand. Go for it unless that fits the vibe of the company. But otherwise, subtle for both parties is always a little bit better. It's always better to overdress than underdress. You can always be told to take off the tie and relax a little bit, but you can't always put it back on. So always overdo it if you need to. During the interview, I'll quote, as you saw in my personal brand, I'm a big Giants fan, so my old coach, Tom Coughlin, had Tom Coughlin time, and early is on time and on time is late. So always arrive at least 15 minutes early, sit in your car, go on your phone, do a last minute prep, whatever you need to do. If it's Zoom, there might be a waiting room that you can join, test your camera, make sure that works, turn your video off if you need to, and go run, do last minute things, but just be present for that exact time. Eye contact, show you're listening, focus on any nonverbal cues that they have. If you have a nervous habit of, playing with your hair constantly, or, you click a pen in your hands, or whatever it may be, but just focus and try to avoid some of those outside distractions. If there's a lot going on in a video or in an office, still try to focus on who's in front of you as the interviewer. And leave electronics in the car, in another room, whatever it may be. Silly again, but they go off, they're distracting, all of the above. Excuse me. Last but not least, sell yourself. What skills are important for the role? Be a storyteller, and be prepared to ask the interviewer questions at the end of the interview. I would always have at least 2 to 3 questions probably ready to go for the interviewer. Ask them if you missed anything, if you could provide any more detail. There's one right off the bat. If you want to know something more about the company or how they got there, that's the chance for you to know. As much as they're hiring you, you're also the one who wants to represent their brand. So you need to know these details just as much. We'll get to the final part, which is the post-interview or the follow-up. And I can't emphasize this enough that there's always a thank you needed at the end of an interview. Regardless if it was the worst interview ever, you got totally nervous, or you couldn't get a word out, but always follow up with a thank you. It's a chance to do one final pitch for what you want, what your skills are. Again, it doesn't need to be terribly lengthy. A simple email is fine. If you have their direct address, send a handwritten note. They're always a great surprise to get on your desk when you walk in or when the mail comes. So those go a long way too. I know it's a lost art, but they help you stand out a little bit. Patience. Don't expect an answer right away after you interview. And I can't emphasize this enough. There's going to be delays in the interview process. They are interviewing other people. You can't expect to have an answer in 24 hours. So keep an eye on the job posting if they're closing applications, whatever it may be. But I would say send your thank you within 24 hours and wait 5 to 7 days to follow up. I would go closer to the 7 mark, probably, but always give that buffer for them to review other candidates, to review all of their conversations, to maybe meet with their counterparts. So you're not going to have an answer right away. So don't check in too frequently. If you do want to follow up after that, fine. Check in politely. You can vary your method, whether it's a phone call, email, whatever it may be. You try a different approach maybe. A little creativity never hurts, but send a note regardless if you get the offer or not. If they say, I'm sorry, we went with another candidate, send a note regardless. Thank you for your time. I appreciate the chance that I was able to interview with you. They're going to remember that. That little bit of courtesy goes a long way for a lot of people. So those are the people they're going to refresh back in their emails and say, oh yes, Jill was super polite. She sent me this note even though she didn't get the job. There was still something they liked about your background, and it might be as simple as just sending a thank you note. So some of my takeaways from here, creating your personal brand that's you and that you're proud of. It took me a while to find my own brand. I'm still figuring it out as I get more experiences, as I join more clubs and organizations and meet new people. I'm going to build off on my brands, and it's not going to stick with me for the rest of my life. Sure, I'm always going to have some of those items, but not all of them too at the same time. So make sure you're proud of it. Look into roles in different industries. Again, don't always be married to the dream job. I was in the bakery, the pharmaceuticals, and then I got my dream job in hockey with one of my favorite teams. So it doesn't always happen right away, but eventually it will if you work hard enough for it and diversify your skills. But details matter. LinkedIn, resume, always more the better. Your job search is a full-time job. It's not a 10-minute type of activity. It's not just blasting your resume to every job site there is. Spend the time to get to know it. Do your homework on job descriptions, companies, interviewers, and always return the favor. Again, networking is a two-way street. You have your brand now, you've shared it with that person, but how can that person, help you too? But you help them. So it's just simple connections. Again, people aren't scary. It's just basic, human interaction. So you network a lot more than you think you do. So utilize some of those skills, utilize your personal brand confidence, and really it will help out tremendously along the way. But my LinkedIn, my email's here. If you need any help at all, I'm always happy to help out. Reach out to me, please feel free. Always send a message with a connection request, but I'm always happy to help out. So I don't know if there's anything else, but that's it on my end for now.